What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Figure It Out of the Basement's Black Series talk show. I'm Nate, joined with Justin.
What's up, guys?
And today we're going to tell you why we think removable helmets should be eliminated from the Black Series.
Yep, why we don't support removable helmets, and we would rather have alt pegs, alt heads, alt helmets in the Black Series.
Before we jump into the topic, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you are new. We're always talking about Star Wars The Black Series here on the channel. Justin, we used to live in a perfect Black Series world where our troopers did not have head sculpts underneath their helmets.
True.
Removable helmets with a head underneath it. Some people might think we're crazy for thinking this, but back then, those were good times.
Yeah, so we have 4 main reasons why we are against removable helmets. Number 1 is a pretty big one, and that is the potential for mass QC issues, specifically warping. Warping. It's a big one. So I want to say back in 2020, the first wave of Galaxy packaging, they started doing this really weird thing where they put an unpainted clone trooper head sculpt underneath every stormtrooper and clone.
Right.
And they glued it down. Like, they glued the helmet onto the unpainted head. And that created, especially at first, maximum warpage. It was a plague in like 2020. But even still to this day, we still get plenty of warping on helmeted characters.
That's true. But at least with those specific ones, you know, you could apply some heat and kind of shape things to be a little bit better. But, you know, on ones where the helmet's glued down, obviously a little bit more difficult. So yeah, I definitely think we should avoid further warping. Let's just avoid QC issues.
Right, I think it's just a combination of gluing that head down. It's not just Stormtroopers and Clone Troopers. They also do it on Mandalorian figures. Like, I know Sabine was one that hers was just all sorts of messed up. And it's probably a combination of gluing it down and, like, vacuum sealing it in the plastic tray.
Oh, yeah, because especially if it's a removable helmet, a lot of times they do pack it separately to try and, you know, trick you and give you a little bit of perceived value. And obviously when they stuff it in that plastic clam, you know, it sits in there for weeks, months, however long a figure takes from it being completed to get to where it needs to go. We saw this a lot with Boba Fett.
Oh, yeah. They still never made official promo shots of that Galaxy packaging release of Boba Fett. It's only CGI.
Yeah, I wonder why. Because everyone had to heat the helmet up and pinch it with their hands.
Yep, I remember that. I remember the big Boba Fett controversy.
Yeah.
So, warping is easily one of the biggest issues that plague removable helmets and I'll just say hollow helmets, you know, when it's not on a simple ball joint. It's glued onto a head. I feel like that's probably worst case scenario. Why did they start doing that?
I think they chalked it up to trying to give like more realistic proportions for the head, but obviously as time has gone on, we've, you know, come to the conclusion things like the 2020 Stormtrooper helmet is actually too small anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, sure, you could say that argument, but in reality the helmets were still kind of off scale.
And that leads into our second biggest issue, which is bobblehead syndrome. It goes hand in hand because the idea was, hey, we're going to make these helmets more realistic because we're basically proving that a head goes on the inside. But this is a massive problem when it comes to clone troopers. I would even apply this to modern 2023 sculpt clone troopers, which we love the 2023 sculpt for clones, but I just think so many of them have bobblehead syndromes. The helmets are easily my number one problem with that trooper sculpt. They just don't look like they have necks because the helmet is so large. Like, even like that Commander Gree from the 2-pack.
Right.
And when you compare that to the movies, the theatrical, Revenge of the Sith Phase 2 clones, it's night and day. And oddly enough, Nate, we had much better clone trooper proportions back in 2013, which is just absolutely insane. Like Commander Bly.
Right. He looks great and still looks great to this day.
Right.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things where, we have to recognize that, especially when it comes to clone troopers, those were CGI models.
Right. Yeah.
Not real people. The clones we see in the prequel trilogy are not real. They're all CGI. So, of course, they don't have realistic head proportions. Like, obviously, if you took the helmet off of a Revenge of the Sith clone, he would probably have a pencil-thin head. And would look very weird, like the CGI model itself.
Right, because obviously when it's CGI, you can make the proportions however you want them to be.
Exactly, and I think that's a problem when they try and put a head underneath it, because of course it instantly makes the clone troopers have a bigger helmet, because their helmets are a little bit more compact, especially like you said, when you look at the older clone troopers in the Black Series. Their heads are smaller. You can definitely look at those and be like, yeah, a human head probably wouldn't fit under this helmet.
Right. And they also have necks.
Yeah.
Like the 2013 clone trooper sculpt, they have necks. Like the 2023 clones straight up don't have necks. It's just all bucket. And obviously there's a lot of great customizers out there. I'm sure I'll be showing some shots in this video of how a clone trooper is supposed to look. And I just think theatrical is the gold standard. I don't care about... Well, I love Clone Wars, but I think when it comes to what they should strive for, it should be that theatrical look. Because they've also done this weird thing where they can't decide, do we want to do animated Clone Wars style helmets or do we want to do theatrical?
Right.
I think theatrical should trump everything.
Absolutely. And that's what they started with initially in the line. And obviously the team has changed over the years. So opinions changed, desires within the team change. But I just feel like when you set a precedence, you should just follow that through. So we already had theatrical looking clones. We should have just kept going along that train for the sake of consistency within the line. That's just simple. I think that just clearly makes a lot of sense. And when it comes to the bobblehead syndrome, it's so easily avoidable with just an alt head.
Yep, it really should just be all heads. I mean, even things that haven't shown up in live action, like ARC Troopers, are big bobbleheads. Like Jesse, that helmet is atrocious. Fives, that helmet is atrocious. It just looks so big on the figures.
Right.
And it just sucks how they've regressed with the helmets. Because like we've been saying, like these figures that are almost, they're 10 years old. Around 10 years old at this point. And they have better proportions than modern day Black Series clones because they're making the helmets removable and forcing the helmets to be larger. Same thing with Mandalorians. Look at Bo-Katan.
Yeah.
I know this is an import, so I get it. But look at Black Series Bo-Katan and how wide the helmet is versus the Mafex.
You can even look at the vintage collection Bo-Katan.
Even the vintage, because TVC is doing, for a lot of their things, they've had some real head scratchers, like their Sabine.
Yeah, their Sabine was a nightmare, but
they have done alt pegs for some of their figures. They've always done it with lit and unlit saber hilts, but they've also done alt pegs for heads and helmets for a character that is helmeted but also have the option of having the unhelmeted look. They've done alt pegs. If TVC gets it, I feel like it's more than fair to say we should get it too, especially it's like a figure thing. It's not like, oh, they got the Slave 1, we should get it too. It's like this has to do with the figures, and Black Series is the definitive figure line, out of those two. So, I mean, if it's about the figures, we should get it too.
I definitely agree with you. When I got the vintage collection Bo-Katan in hand a few years ago, I was just blown away, and I was immediately just like, like, why?
Why is this better?
Like, why don't we have this in the Black series? It just seems so simple, and it's something like that could actually count towards the perceived value. Not a removable helmet, but an actual fully sculpted alternate helmet piece. That genuinely becomes an accessory in my book. A removable helmet, I'm just like, this is a thin piece of garbage plastic that you took off the character and put next to it so that you could try and trick me into thinking this has more accessories in the box.
Right. So leading into our third point here, Nate, I know this is your favorite. The chinners out there.
I love a good chinner. Started with good old 59 Captain Rex.
Yep.
And
is he the OG chinner?
He is the OG chinner, because that was the first clone with a removable helmet.
Yeah, so what we mean by chinner is visible chin on the figure, which this just really gets under my skin, honestly.
And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, we thought we were past this.
Yep.
And then it comes back to haunt us. You know, as great as the 3.0 Clone Trooper Phase 2 figure is, at the end of the day, it's still a damn chinner, which drives me nuts.
Just seeing that little bit of flesh tone where the chin is, because, again, these were all CGI in the movies, so they didn't have to worry about that. But on the figures, there's just that little tiny bit of flesh tone. And it's so ironic how Fives, because of his goatee, doesn't suffer from this problem because it's just black.
Yeah, it just happens to blend in, which is just great and convenient for Fives. But for so many other clone troopers, you know, most of my clones on my shelf, they're all like, head pointed down, so you can't see the chin.
You can try to like force your thumb in there, hold the head up, put the helmet on, but it's hard to do. It doesn't work most of the time, and even in official Hasbro promo shots, you can see that flesh tone, and I see it on my shelf, and it just sucks because that wouldn't be a problem with alt pegs.
The best example I could put forward to the visible chin issue is, as well, with some of the veil slop that I have in my collection. To prevent them from being chinners, I've modified them, and literally you have to basically cut the buzz top haircut piece off of the head to get it low enough to where there's no chin. So it just goes to show you that there's really no way they can actually make it work and actually have them be the proper proportion without showing the chin, because the clone trooper head they use with the flat top haircut gives it like an extra couple centimeters, so it pushes that helmet up.
Yeah, no, 100%. Speaking of hair, though, Nate, let's talk about our final point, which is the fact that they have to design the head around the helmet. They have to design whatever head it is to fit the helmet. This is an underrated point, and I think it's the final nail in the coffin for these removable helmets. Let's take a look at something like the Mandalorian build-up pack, where he looks like Justin Trudeau, and they had to smash Pedro Pascal's hair all down on his body just to fit the Beskar Mando helmet on that head.
It looks like weird, oily, like stringy hair. Does not look like beautiful, handsome. Pedro Pascal just took his helmet off and his hair's flowing in the wind. Bo-Katan's another horrible example. I feel like her hair is just like stuck so closely to the side of her head. And her, it's like a double whammy because she gets bobblehead and then she gets terrible hair sculpt. So you lose either way.
She's not a chinner, though.
True, but you lose either way you display Bo.
Yeah.
Because she either has like crazy thin hair or her helmet is the size of Texas.
Right. I mean, if you want Bo-Katan, find God and buy the Mafex. What are some other examples? I feel like there's other more modern examples too. Like even something like the new Luke. Like it looks like they just shaped the hair and how it's so matted down to maybe fit a future release where the blast shield helmet goes on him.
Well, right, because if you have the blast shield already, you know it fits perfectly onto this Luke.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it does seem like maybe they will give us some kind of like maybe Millennium Falcon training set. Give us a new Obi-Wan. Repack the Luke.
Yeah, and it's just ridiculous to me how we should have to accept that they are changing the design of the human likeness, the human hair sculpts, the human head sculpt, just to accommodate the removable helmet. They are changing and messing around with the design of the actor, of the character, just to fit a helmet.
Mm-hmm.
That is ridiculous, and is yet another thing that could be negated by an alternate peg. There's literally no argument against alt pegs. I've heard two arguments. One, stop motion animation, which that is such a minority of it's probably like 0.0001% of collectors. I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to take the L on that. Second thing I've heard, easier accessory storage, and I'm just like, come on, man, like, come on, collectors, get a craft organizer, get a tackle box,
literally,
and organize your accessory. Like, come on, that's not a valid justification.
Go to Walmart, spend $3, and get a giant plastic accessory container that has all the different little compartments in it.
Right. I suppose here's the one thing I'll give you. If you do want to hit that pose with Wrecker, how he has the helmet, like, he, like, lifts it up and he's, like, resting it on the top of his head.
Sure.
It's a cool pose.
That's one figure, though.
But that's one figure, one pose, one photo. I'm sorry, it's not enough to overturn the removable helmet allegations we got going on right now. And I just think it's absolute garbage. I think it, like we said, it increases the probability that you get warping, funky proportions, just really odd, wonky, funky proportions, and bobblehead syndrome.
Right.
The hair that we just talked about, and the visible chins. That's like our four main issues. I don't know if you had anything else to add.
I think we've covered everything, basically.
TVC has it!
Right. Balance those scales. You know, we always love to talk about it. So, yeah, it's just one of those things. The negatives far outweigh the positives of removable helmets. So, it's just something we need to move away from. We didn't do it in the beginning of the line, and it was pretty awesome.
Right, and it's crazy how much more range of movement the head of the original Stormtrooper has over the 2020 Stormtrooper. 2020 Stormtrooper is an infinitely superior figure all around. But if you look at that original Stormtrooper sculpt, that head, like, it goes everywhere. Every which direction, because it's just on a simple ball joint. This is like the only instance where I'm telling Hasbro to regress and like just put that son of a bitch on a ball joint and let it be.
Yep.
Because there is nothing ever wrong with ball joints, especially on troopers.
Yep. And especially if you're not going to just in general make the helmet come off. Like the whole gluing down onto an unpainted
so random
helmet, that was just so dumb. Just
Agreed.
Really dumb. Because all it did was cause issues. That whole basically first batch of Mandalorian Stormtroopers, garbage. All of them.
Camino clones.
Yep. Most of them, garbage.
Yeah.
So that was a unbelievable head scratcher. Thankfully, they moved away from that with the clones. And as of right now, they seem to not want to release any Stormtroopers. So we're still stuck with the glue down head on the Stormtroopers.
See Christ and buy the SH figure arts if you want the Stormtrooper.
Yeah. At this point, get that SHF, get that Mafex, because it seems like Hasbro's kind of done with Stormtroopers at the moment.
Right. To end this video, Nate, I do have a daunting task at hand, and that is to notify you that the new Bakara is in fact on a ball joint, and it still looks like shit. So at the end of the day, maybe we're just a bunch of yappers and we have no idea what we're talking about when Val's Toy Store can produce a better 1/12 Bakara-looking helmet. It's only because they stole the sideshow and scaled it down, but still.
Yeah. I'm really huffing that hopium that I'm just like, maybe all the people who have Bakara in hand already just have some QC issues. Maybe Landspeeder Luke got a bad QC helmet.
Please. Landspeeder Luke, you got a bad batch, buddy. Please.
This is the only time I wish someone has a QC issue. Because I just hope that the
Fingers
Bakara
crossed.
helmets coming are not that bad. Because it, at the moment, looks like we might just be yapping.
Yeah. So, who knows? I mean, they've done good-looking Clone Trooper helmets in the past, so I know they can do it.
And to be fair, the Phase 1 Clone Trooper helmet looks pretty good.
It does look pretty good. It's still too big.
Yeah.
But it's not a chinner, and it does look better proportional than the Phase 2. Still too big, but I'll accept the Phase 1. At this point, I'll take the W on that.
Yeah. He's not a chinner either. Not a chinner.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's all we have for you on this week's episode of Figure It Out. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to leave a like. Subscribe if you are new. We're always talking about Star Wars The Black Series here on the channel. If you are in a position to help support us directly, we do also offer a couple different channel membership tiers. Check those out in the description down below. And while you're there, join that Discord. That one is totally free. You just got to make an account. And it's a great way to get connected with us and other members of the community. I'm Nate. I've been joined with Justin.
See you guys later.
And we will see you all next time on Out of the Basement.
Should we do a rage thumb?
Here.